because Stone Cold said so.
WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, released on November 21st exclusively for the PlayStation, same as the original SmackDown that just released 8 months earlier. Racking up an incredible 8.2 million copies sold, WWF SmackDown 2 is truly a trailblazer for wrestling games going forward, especially on the Sony side of things. Without SmackDown 1 and 2's contributions to the timeline of wrestling video games and the complete and utter abandonment of the AKI Corporation, I do truly believe that we would be lost going forward. Thank Dog for Yuke's and THQ's partnership. I've spent so many hours within the world of SmackDown 2, this game completely took over my life in 2000 after it came out, to the point that even a year later on the PlayStation 2, the whole next generation of console, I still continue to play SmackDown 2 instead of just bringing it due to its vast selection of features, unlocks and never-ending season mode. The trailer for this title included Kurt Angle making his way through the Rock's Hotel from the original trailer, which is definitely interesting. It would seem that the WWF had already had high hopes for Kurt Angle, and could see him really becoming a huge star within the company. At this point, if we assume this was filmed around August, he'd have been with the company less than a year, and given it's The Rock's catchphrase once again, it's interesting that they chose Kurt to be the poster boy for this title. Now, before we get started, I've been messing around with a couple different modded versions of SmackDown 2 for most of the footage. The It Doesn't Matter mod gives access to different HUD-less versions of this title, with added people and different attires. So if you happen to notice Taker is wearing something slightly different, or the Big Show is actually present, that's because it's a modified version. Just pretend it's a core version. Obviously, when it comes to talking about graphics and attires, we'll focus on the default version of this title. Now, shoutouts to Inspired, Kendrick SD2 and YoungBoy11 for their excellent work on this game. I really enjoy messing around with the game HUDless. It just gives matches a totally different feel. It makes it super cinematic, being able to experience the game in this way. I really wish it was the default option, but that's something else we can talk about later on down the line. Graphically, this title hasn't seen too much of a change, with wrestlers generally looking the same apart from a few slight differences here and there to match the current time frame that they've emerged from. Taker obviously has his American Badass attire this time around, but guys like Triple H, Road Dogg, X-Pac and Billy Gunn remain relatively untouched due to how they essentially didn't change anything about their appearance at this time. Billy Gunn missed pretty much the entire year, so it really makes sense that February or so was kind of the appearance that he held in this game. Well, I'm sure between games there was some form of graphical and texture upgrades, as I'd hate to say things look the same, but arenas, audience and entranceways do look to have been upgraded and appear higher quality and much sharper than before. Now, as always, colours tend to be the main takeaway whilst looking at the gameplay. From every second that you spend in and out of the ring, you can always see a great amount of colours, especially when using one or two main arenas found within this title. SmackDown and Raw both have a great amount of reds, blues and other bright colours highlighting every detail between each move and moment, whereas the dark green pay-per-view arenas consist of greys and blacks around the ring itself. Having the colours of your two selected wrestlers shine through and be highlighted ever so slightly against the backdrop of fans or against the rather interesting eye-catching entranceway. Now, the entranceway at first glance doesn't seem too different from what came previously, but a direct comparison really puts it in focus, the main difference between the SmackDown 1 and 2. It's literally night and day. Of course, the stage did actually change in real life, so this obviously has something to do with that, with the biggest change coming from Raw's shift towards having two massive screens to the side of the stage itself, whereas previously it was nothing more than a black top. SmackDown's original stage design seen in SmackDown 1 was essentially just a massive black void off in the distance with some shapes surrounding it, whereas in SmackDown 2 we genuinely couldn't get too much closer to what was used at that time, with the sweet Ovaltron sitting off to the right of the screen actually displaying what was taking place in the ring at the time. Now, the atmosphere of the menus found in SmackDown 2 is something to truly behold. I have no idea what Yuke was up to during the end of 99 and beginning of 2000, but it really was something just different. SmackDown 1's insane looking PlayStation 1 demo disc style menus to whatever the hell this is, with its crazy sound and music and incredibly obtuse fonts and menus, to whatever was going on with just bringing its alien style design, which we'll get to. SmackDown 2's intro has something just out of this world play out as you sit deciding where to head first. A strange alien voice can be heard in the background with some crazy synths underneath before the drums come back in, driving you into whatever menu you end up in next. I guess this is really what happens when you let a Japanese wrestling company create a wrestling title. This track was composed by Masafumi Ogata, which was also the same composer of the techno music found in Sonic CD's Japanese release. Once again, I'm tasked with describing the feel of this title. Low can only really compare it to the same kind of vibe that we'd get from playing Tekken Tag Tournament instead of Warzone or Attitude. Even just at a glance, either of these menus will kind of let you know what to expect from a professional wrestling experience, and this just isn't that. Not to be overly negative, it's just so strange and nostalgic. Not only nostalgic, but it just gives you the feel of floating through space. A true gift for sitting through those incredibly long loading screens. Now the loading screens themselves, given how long we have to sit through them, are all frankly quite simplistic. Having a wrestler on the screen with an explosion in blue, a signature if they don't have their own logo, or some random statistic, like Crash Holly's over 400 pounds weight scale. It's just what I need to get me ready for a match. I mean, who doesn't get fired up seeing Triple H bathed in green light? The cat's overly MySpace looking pink with stars, or Tori's DX green, seconds before she drives herself through a table. One of the actual live action shots that these screens really could have done more of. Kane's screen is awesome, showing Kane's mask sitting bathed in a dark and scary red light, but nonetheless, given how long we have to sit behind these and the sheer amount of loading screens in this title, I guess we could have had something a little more interesting, or any kind of moving image, letting us know that our game hasn't crashed as we sit and wait and wait and wait. SmackDown 2's roster is absolutely peak wrestling. There isn't a single person here that's missing that I can think of, apart from one giant-sized big missing person, and Ken Shamrock, but whatever, even they make an appearance in Royal Rumble matches. Yes, The Big Show and Ken Shamrock were both in the beta build of SmackDown 2, but became removed after Ken Shamrock essentially left the WWF, and The Big Show was fat shamed for being fatty. Any Big Shows or Ken Shamrocks you may see in my footage is just cope from me, modding them back in, or pretend they're creator wrestlers or something. In total, there is a brand new set of 30 wrestlers that all make their debut in this title, keeping in mind that SmackDown 1 had only 30 superstars altogether. Knowing that this title adds that amount, it's pretty crazy for Yuke to pull off. Now, when I say debuting, I primarily mean debuting in the Yuke SmackDown series, as one or two may have appeared in WrestleMania or Royal Rumble for the Dreamcast before this title. So who have we got this time around? Well, there was quite a large stable presence on SmackDown 2, meaning that of course all DX members are here, including Shawn Michaels, who was missing from SmackDown 1. We have Team Extreme, including the debut Alita. We have the brand new inclusion of the Mean Street Posse, Joey Abs, Pete Gas and Rodney. We have all of Too Cool, Scotty the Grandmaster and Rikishi. We have the entire Radicals faction jumping over from WCW, Saturn Benoit, Eddie and Dean Malenko. Pat Patterson and Briscoe make their debut, appearing with Vince's Tron as his stooges. Crash Holly, S.A. Rios, Funaki and Taka make their debut for the hardcore or light heavyweight division. The Cat, Jacqueline Ivory, Stephanie McMahon, despite her recent appearance in SmackDown 1, and Trish Stratus all make their debut for the Divas. Viscera is here, along with Taz, who debuted at the Royal Rumble, and Kurt Angle, his opponent from said event, also debuts in this title. Now, the rights to Censor's dominance over the WWF at the time means that Bull Bacano and Stephen Richards are here, alongside with their stablemate and returning star, the Good Father. So, who's missing? I'd be stretching to find somebody who wasn't on that list, honestly, but there's Midian, Mosh and Chaz, Tiger Ali Singh, Moolah and May, and if we stretch our take on the roster to September, we could probably say William Regal as well, but that'd be kind of pushing it a little bit. When choosing a wrestler who has a valet or isn't a stable, they may just come straight out with them in a match for exhibition, which is a cool thing that happens, though they're not present in the match itself unless you choose a manager versus manager single match. Now, entrances are fairly similar outside of that change, though there is definitely a huge improvement here. The bar at the bottom of the screen that previously had the wrestler's name this time around actually disappears, and selected superstars have more room to move around on screen, though there is still just a strange void of video and wrestler on stage at once. There are obvious attire and gimmick updates. The Undertaker stands out mainly this time around, as he has been represented by his American badass persona, comes to the ring on a bike. He steps off it and just walks forward. It's a cool enough visual, even though the unmodded game doesn't have his correct theme song. The Godfather has been updated to the Good Father, as I said before, along with Bull Buchanan joining Steve Richards on the dark side of things. And Kane this time is brought to the ring by Paul Bearer and is seen in his one-sleeve red attire, an attire that would go down in history as one of his best, though it wasn't his current gear at the time of release, which is a weird decision, especially because Kane without the sleeves, you can actually choose it in the Create a Wrestler mode and make an updated Kane, so it's kind of strange that they put that gear in and then just didn't have it be his default. So yeah, it's a weird decision, but I assume to have him match his current manager, Paul Bearer, he has to be in the one-sleeve gear. The gameplay this time around feels a little faster. fresher and harder than before. Wrestlers counter, spam moves, use different holds, and fight, taunt, and run around the ring after you. The aggression is real. Camera cuts make a return, which adds to the overall realism of an event, zooming into the ring as somebody is scoop-slammed, and always having the best camera angles saved for finisher moves and their execution. Though that's not really a change, as this was essentially there in the first game. This time it's just a bit more snappier. There has been a total and complete brushing up of animations in their execution and their fluidity, seemingly being the focus this time around, giving guys like Jeff Hardy beautiful swanton bombs to the outside and Asai moonsaults over the top rope onto their opponents. Taunts have been expanded upon, with a directional taunt and standard taunt being able to be performed. This again have a great benefit to wrestlers' finishing bars, but really helps to just get over the kind of person that you're playing as. And on top of that, generates a finisher quicker the more times that button has been pressed. Having two different taunts present is just a great addition. Now, although the moves, strikes and overall button presses remain the same, X for strike, circle for grapple, triangle for running, there has been little touches here and there that simply add to the feeling of each match, keeping them feeling different from what you played previously. Now, 2 commentary tables have also been added to the outside of the ring, starting off Yuke's and the SmackDown series of games Fascination, with involving tables in the bell-to-bell action. Now, interacting with them doesn't constitute its location much like in real life, but your actions are fairly limited. You can climb, jump off and throw your opponent onto them, but only a few canned animations are actually able to be performed once you're on top of said table. Now, outside of this, there is essentially filler, but they look great nonetheless. Finishers look real as ever, having Triple H's pedigree stand out as a brutal, no-hands execution, driving an opponent's face straight down into the mat. The Rock's pupil's elbow looks excellent as the camera swishes around the People's Champion, shows him throwing his elbow pad into the audience in front of him, and the Stone Cold Stunner having the opponent sent into the far distance, bouncing and rebounding as they go. The finisher meter, much like before, has 3 settings: fast, fastest and normal, meaning your match can go from a more gritty, realistic take of back and forth action, seeing who will end up with the finisher first, or more of a total fight of each wrestler being able to get hold of a finisher move within the first few minutes. Finisher moves, though, when generated quickly, don't have that much of an impact on the wrestler than you'd think. Kane hits 2 straight chokeslams on his brother, but the dead man is quick to his feet almost immediately after, though just a single last ride could have Kane laid out on the mat. This game is very clearly rooted in the arcade genre of battling back and forth, but sometimes really just doesn't feel very fair. It does make sense that guys like The Undertaker and Kane would have a bit more tenaciousness to them, a bit more durability, but yeah, you get a bit tedious when your move just doesn't put them down for the 3 count. Now, suplexes and throws this time around also have a greater chance to launch an opponent out of the ring, which is incredible. It's always just looks excellent when you see somebody get thrown overhead and over the top rope. Something like that is just really missing from the recent titles. Now, ended animations this time around have been reworked with a lot more attention being given to certain individuals that need it, meaning The Rock's 4-corner salute to the audience is present, along with Triple H's double pump to the crowd at ringside, which honestly is kind of a strange animation that Triple H has. By this point, if Triple H were to win a match, he'd definitely mount one of the turnbuckles and go for, like, you know, the full lat spread kind of taunt, but yeah, it's not in this game at all. Double team moves are included during standard tag team matches after Irish whipping an opponent into a corner and using the grapple move whilst your partner is standing still. This explodes into an animation where you can hit a fantastic list of preset moves, exclusive to tag team matchups. Top rope finisher moves remain relatively unchanged, with the Swanton Bomb still not landing completely flat out on an opponent, which is rather disappointing, instead grazing nearby. Now, the main goal of most match types is just to get your opponent to lay flat on their back, spread eagle. That's when they're out cold and the best time to go for a pinfall. In terms of actual wrestling inside of matches, SmackDown 2 is still one of the most fun experiences you can have, almost completely different to what's on offer on all of the other games I've listed so far. In no other entry into any of these years do you just have the sheer power to throw people around the ring with such force as you can whilst playing as somebody like Taz, the human suplex machine. Not only can you suplex people around the ring, but outside the ring, through the side of the Hell in a Cell, off the top of the Hell in a Cell, from the outside of the ring to the inside of the ring. It's just so much fun. Nothing like this really comes close in today's games that really come around. And unfortunately, the games from this point forward become more and more limited on this kind of arcade-like interaction with 2 wrestlers inside of the ring. Now, the wrestlers do physically pass out, which looks awesome. Using the Taz mission, having a wrestler close their eyes and really just pass out does look so cool. They don't have the animation for actually tapping out. Submission moves, though relatively new to the series, still play out the same as before, with next to no submission system in place at all. You slap on a hold, and as long as you're away from the ropes, it may or may not work. Applying the same hold a couple more times may give a submission, but otherwise there's nothing that you can do to affect such a thing actually working outside of just locking on the hold and applying more damage. Submissions, they're present in the game, but they're completely overpowered. It's impossible to break up a submission that's taking place in a multi-man match. Impossible, apart from pushing said submission attempt into the ropes. That's literally the only way to stop a submission attempt from two of your opponents in the matchup. There's no submission system, as I've said. Lock on a hold, maybe they'll tap. No button mashing, no button pressing at all, actually. Some occasions you can lock on a submission and put your controller down as you know the match will end, but it does feel so random. I think in the current day we're used to button prompts in minigames, able to complete most actions like taking down titles, winning Royal Rumbles and throwing wrestlers through objects. Though back in 2000 you simply just had to do the objective of a match in order to win. TLC makes its debut this year in real life and in video games, with the incredible Hardys, Dudleys and Edge and Christian taking place at SummerSlam that year prior. Unfortunately, TLC match with its tables, chairs and ladders is locked to just a singles match this time around. Casket matches also make their debut in SmackDown 2 and is essentially forgotten from this point forward. The match type itself consists of a massive object sitting at ringside, which can be picked up, swung around and used like a baseball bat. Its only use outside of being used as a weapon is the random occurrence that a wrestler will end up inside. This also happens after somebody is Irish whipped towards said object, then attacked until the lid somehow appears. Weird. We didn't really see casket matches that much around the turn of the millennium, given Undertaker was now in his American Badass phase. He wasn't exactly working on coffins. Table matches, although an interesting concept, actually gives us the option of competing as a tag team, something that was definitely important to said mode, giving us the ability to have the Hardys versus the Dudleys. The table matches themselves, though, like the casket, can be swung around like a baseball bat, and again, like the casket, require to throw your opponent towards them in order for them to be set in place and lay on the top of them. Like the commentary table, they can also be jumped off. Now, once a wrestler is laid upon the table, you'll often see the nearest AI sprinting towards the corner in order to hit a move from the top rope and put somebody straight down through said table. I think today we've become too used to the fluidity of said table matches, being able to hit a move near a table and the whole thing just falls apart, whereas in the first version of said match, things are a lot more stationary and stiff despite the crazy fast chaotic battles that take place. Tables also have you set your opponent upon a table, giving you two straight options: jump through or use a grapple, move or top off. The list of moves atop a table is also relatively quite short. I think there's a rock bottom and maybe there's Triple H's pedigree, but most others will use either a power bomb or a pile driver. If the opponent isn't weak enough, they'll reverse and you'll be sent flying over the top rope or just off of the table in general. These tend to go on for a little while and they eventually will see a table break with a sweet looking pile driver, or power bomb as I say. Cage matches remain relatively unchanged, a term that I'm sure I've used already, but it has to be said. I actually witnessed D'Lo win one of these matches almost immediately, which seems a bit buggy. Hell in a Cell matches were one of the most requested and most detested to be included in this SmackDown title. Though it's made its debut here, it's a mere shell of what it should be. It's a cage match, complete with walls, though they can be broken through, and a roof which can be climbed the top of. So what makes the Hell in a Cell special? Not much. After knocking down the walls, they can be picked up and used as weapons outside of throwing somebody off the top of the cell. There isn't much else about it. It was definitely something that the WWF and Yuke hyped up, though it's just an unclimbable form of cage match. I guess nobody ever really climbed the Hell in a Cell from inside either, so that kind of makes sense, but yeah, it's weird. You can break through the roof itself, but there isn't much more on offer here for this kind of match type. A shame. Our Crit match is back in SmackDown 2 this time around, including the same mechanics as before. You grab the microphone, talk some inaudible trash, and then attempt to force the microphone into your opponent's mouth to see if they give up. That's it, that's the match. You put on the damage and use the microphone instead of pinning. The ladder match includes a single ladder and only comes in the single match variation. Once you hit the top of the ladder, you can immediately dive straight off it, performing any kind of move when you come down top your opponent. The ladder itself, much like tables and caskets, oh my, can be swung and used as a weapon, but actually does serve a purpose. At the top of the ladder, you can reach for the title and immediately win. The only catch in this match is to find a way to keep your opponent down for as long as it takes to actually reach it. Once two wrestlers are atop a ladder, they'll begin to swing at each other till one falls. That tends to be the end of a match. Now the catch is, once again, it's incredibly easy to knock down a ladder once somebody is atop it. What that essentially means is that if somebody is there, a second away from winning, you can knock the ladder straight over with a single punch. It's impossible to use moves onto the ladder itself, which is a shame, though it is possible to Irish whip somebody straight into it. Now the main thing about this mode is that the title hanging above is moving from side to side, hanging from the ceiling, meaning that there is some kind of chance to whether or not you'll actually win the match immediately. It's fun enough, worth a single match, then you'll pretty much get the gist of it and what's on offer. The special referee match is back, and this time around includes the option for two referees at once, meaning they'll be busy fighting each other instead of focusing on you and your count you were going after. This can lead to some hilarious things happening. As soon as a count starts to get counted, the opponent's referee will rush over and strike the other referee. The referee will then look to get immediate revenge and the fight will continue. This leads to one referee simply fast counting so the match ends quicker. The main highlight is also that every wrestler in the game has an alt attire where they are wearing the referee t-shirt. But that's it for special matches in SmackDown 2. An incredible bunch of inclusions this time around, though that doesn't mean we're done. The Anywhere full match and the hardcore matches have now been improved and include special referees and fatal 4-way types, and 3-ways, meaning that you can now wrestle multiple people at once, wherever they want at once. Cool, an obvious game move that was a singles match only variant now can be included with 4 people. A great improvement than what was present in SmackDown 1. Backstage environments have been improved upon and now include a lot more open space, probably due to the amount of people that can now be seen on screen at once. Unfortunately, it's still very easy to go from one space to another. Simply just moving towards or running, being thrown at an entranceway will send the entire 4 of you through to the next environment itself. Finishes and damage is retained, though it's hard to see. The downfall to the 4-way is that there is no camera cuts that take place, mainly so that people actually playing the game continue to see what's taking place on screen. These matches are pure chaos and can pretty much only end with a submission or 2 pinfalls taking place at the same time. The hardcore time limit match has been added to this title as well, having your actual hardcore champion defend their championship outside of season mode in a first for the series. It's something awesome being able to set up rankings for each title, meaning that essentially only people in the hardcore division can actually compete for the hardcore title. There's King of the Ring mode showing us the awesome looking King of the Ring brackets from 1990-2000, allowing you to select who takes part and contains the ability to have a standard King of the Ring or a Russo style one, overbooked and containing all different match types per matchup that takes place. Unfortunately, the King of the Ring doesn't have any kind of amazing ending cutscene, so it's really just for the fun of playing. Royal Rumble is identical to what came before. Unfortunately, there's a loading time between each wrestler making their way out to the ring. It's unfortunate when this happens because everything pauses, wrestlers freeze in place, the music stops playing, and it's overall a rather infuriating experience. An absolute bore to play in 2000, though easy enough to win, which makes it better than No Mercy's experience. It really is surreal how well people think of this mode. Honestly, I think it's kind of a Marmite thing though. You either absolutely love it and only have nostalgia for it, or you see it for what it really was, a slog. Match after match of feuds you have no interest in, wrestlers you're not playing loading screen after loading screen, to have somewhat completely random cutscenes of wrestlers sitting backstage relaxing, flexing, walking, arriving, complaining, or asking for a favour on pay-per-view, stretched between watching battling bars over and over again. I for one do not have nostalgia for season mode, and trust me, I played a lot of this mode in 2000 and 2001. Feuds will build up, like The Undertaker and Kane. Then Taker will jump The Godfather backstage and The Rock will take on Kane on pay-per-view. It all feels completely random, disjointed and honestly rather puzzling. Is the first year of season mode fun? Sure, totally. There's some fun and interesting cutscenes, including Austin's return before Backlash 2000 and Shawn Michaels as the referee at Judgment Day. Another random events taken from 2000, but other than that, what are the positives? Well, you can set up your own rankings for each title, something that was definitely appealing at the time. Being able to decide who stayed in the tag team title rankings, who'd advance to hardcore, light heavyweight, European Championship rankings, and who'd be able to break into the WWF title ranking was all based on your own decision. What sucks about it is that there is absolutely no celebration to a new champion being crowned. If you watch the match or skip it, then that sucks. Though you do see the new champion carry the belt to the ring during title defenses. That's cool. Very cool, compared to what came previously. They're all canned animations, everyone stands the same, looks the same, but hey, the belts look slightly different, and that was definitely enough for me in 2000. I admit, totally, I got into this mode as a kid. I spent a lot of time messing around with it and wrestling up and down the rankings. I watched Dean Malenko and Scotty 2 Hotty going back and forth for the light heavyweight title over and over again. I do enjoy the open-ended nature, but there was definitely a better way to do it than battling bars. All of that being said though, compared to what came after this title for a full and complete WWF experience, this is probably some of the best that you'll find when it comes to experiencing a full card of an actual WWF event. This new experience Raw, SmackDown and the pay-per-view that follows, giving a complete look at a month as a whole. It's just a shame that it's just so shallow. Nothing else really comes back to this kind of storytelling. Just Bring It has nothing like this. The SmackDown vs Raw series don't explore a full month in the life of a wrestler for quite a while, and even then it's never anything as engaging as this. The modern day 2K series of games have a universe mode option that does attempt to have you take complete control of a wrestler, much like we see here, so if you're a big fan of that, this may be the one for you to check out for a complete 2000 experience of the WWF. Here Comes the Pain is pretty close to this kind of season mode as well, where you can track what's going on with different titles, interfere, watch or even play the matches yourself, and that's pretty cool, but it's nothing like this. So let's live a week within the WWF SmackDown 2 season mode. You show up to the building, you hear you have a special match, you ask for a favour and it's granted. Dean Malenko has a light heavyweight title match, your opponent gets jumped backstage, you're either saved or destroyed, maybe your opponent will have an interview instead of being attacked. Michael Cole will look confused, you have your match, you're satisfied with your victory or disappointed in your loss. Sorry that wasn't entirely accurate, what I meant to say was loading screen, cutscene, loading screen, match, battle bar, loading screen, cutscene, loading screen, battle bar, loading screen, cutscene, loading screen, match, battle bar, loading screen, cutscene, loading screen, battle bar, repeat. It just goes on and on and on, and that's it. That's the story on offer here. Everything else you happen to come up with is essentially within your own head. Of course, there are occasional cutscenes like a stable meeting inside the ring, though nothing is said and it doesn't affect anything outside of that one thing that you just watched. A match may take place immediately after, which seems connected, but who knows, could be anyone. If the person who we just saw lost, then we may see them complain afterwards, or celebrate if they won. Occasionally, you could be attacked yourself before a match, which gives you a disadvantage. I assume there's no way to tell your wrestler's health in this game, so maybe. Of course, you can look into the championship history and see how many defenses that people have had in the past, or look at who your current champions are. The rankings are the main point that you need to be interested in, and as I'm playing as Taz in season mode, it's important to know where I rank up against the other people in the hardcore championship division. I'm currently second, and Pat Patterson, who I've recently defeated, is now third. It's literally as easy and transparent as that, only it's not, because even as number one contender, I still didn't get a championship match for another month or two. It was insane. The simplicity in this mode is what makes it so appealing and interesting due to how easy it can actually be to get sucked into what's on offer here. Season mode can really surprise you at times, with random events like Albert and Test conspiring backstage before a nearby car almost attempted to run them both down. I remind you that the footage we're watching here is from year 6 of the season mode. So I'm 2 hours into recording this session of season mode footage. I'm getting so tired of throwing Pat Patterson around as the second ranked person in the hardcore division when suddenly Too Cool are talking trash in the ring. China comes down to confront them and beats them somehow, according to the battling bars. I don't know how. After this matchup, Too Cool asks Rikishi to dance. In loss, he refuses. Cool, never seen that cutscene before. The next night on Raw, Too Cool are confronted by the Dudley Boys. They lose again and ask the Dudley Boys to dance, and they agree. This is just excellent. How could you not love this? Surprisingly, after seeing Too Cool lose to the Hardy Boys, I actually did end up in a match against Rikishi, which I won, which led to nothing. But the fact that there's so much included in this season mode with these tiny little moments like this, it really blows my mind and just, I don't know, it doesn't really save season mode, because it really just comes down to kind of putting your mind and put in your hardware that you're using to play this game. You know, if you're playing this on an original PlayStation, man, the fucking loading must be so long. On top of all of that, I even won the King of the Ring mode, and then nothing happened. Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, I'm conflicted. WWF SmackDown 2 was such a great game when it came out that not only did it withstand the test of time to today's overall ranking of wrestling games, but even at the time it came out, I felt it was a complete and utter goldmine for entertainment. I remember going back and playing it over and over again, even after I had WWF Just Bring It for the PlayStation 2, reinserting my PS1 memory card and playing through it thanks to the PlayStation 2's backwards compatibility. The thing that just got me right where I wanted to have got was the ability to set up rankings and have different styles compete for different titles, something completely completely absent from the follow-up, which I'll be talking about in the next video. The 4-man Hardcore Battle Royal mode allowed you to compete for titles at any point outside of the season mode, as long as everybody competing for said title was within the rankings that you had to set up. So I'd remove a bunch of guys, insert somebody like Jericho, then reinsert everybody else, just so Jericho would be at the top of the ranking match next go around. I guess having to do this level of manipulation just to achieve a title match might be seen as an overall negative, but being 10 and just doing this in my bedroom with the big light on was just so interesting and fun for me to do. It's something again that we gained access to in 2005 with SmackDown vs. Raw 2006's release, allowing us to do matches with titles outside of the season mode proper. And I'm losing my voice, so I'm sorry. Nothing really before this time period, outside of the N64 releases, allowed for such freedom and fun to be had. And that to me is what really makes SmackDown 2 memorable. Just tons of tiny little things, making up for an overall, complete, classic and great wrestling title that has truly gone on to earn its right as one of the best games of all time for the original PlayStation.